First of all, I would like to start with an unpleasant question. So, how are you? Well, I'm alive, which is good, so I believe it is a pleasant question.
This is my video update on this Tuesday afternoon, September the 2nd, coming to you from Athens, Greece. Let's talk about some news. And let's start things off with the bilateral meeting between Putin and Xi, where Russia and China, they signed over 20 documents for bilateral cooperation. And then we also had a meeting between Russia, China, and Mongolia. And the big news here is that we have a legal agreement to begin the Power of Siberia 2, which will deliver Russian gas to China via Mongolia. Mongolia is going to be the transit state. So this is a big deal, a very, very big deal. Russia and China have been working on trying to get the Power of Siberia 2 agreed on. And according to Gazprom CEO Alexei Miller, we now have a legal agreement where Power of Siberia 2 will be launched after 2030, and it's an agreement that's going to last for 30 years. We don't know the details of pricing or how the payments will be made and what currency the transactions will take place in, but we do know that this is gas that was supposed to be going to Europe, and now it's going to be diverted via the Power of Siberia 2 to China. And my understanding of the amount of gas that eventually by 2030 will be purchased by China will cover 100% of all the gas that used to be, once upon a time, purchased and delivered to Europe. So Europe by 2030 will be completely replaced as far as gas deliveries go for Russia. China is going to replace all of Europe. So big news, big L for Europe. They are now stuck with LNG, and they're stuck with very expensive US LNG. China's going to be getting low-cost, dependable Russian pipeline gas. And for 30 years, Europe's fate is sealed. Deindustrialization. They will not be able to compete with China. They were already having huge difficulties competing with China, but this is pretty much sealed Europe's fate. And China is the big winner, as is Mongolia. Yeah, once upon a time, it was Ukraine that was making big bucks on being a transit state for Russian gas. Now it is going to be Mongolia that is going to be making the big bucks as a transit state for Power of Siberia 2. So there's some people that are saying that the United States is going to now try to get some sort of a regime change or color revolution going on in Mongolia. Perhaps they will try to do something, but Mongolia is very different than Ukraine. Just the geography of Mongolia makes it very difficult for the United States to get some sort of regime change or color revolution. Of course, Ukraine had the Europeans poking around in Ukraine. It had the Americans there for many decades poking around in Ukraine and supporting and feeding the Banderite ideology. And then you look at the geography of Ukraine, where you have it situated very close to NATO and to the EU, and so it made it very easy for the United States to get a regime change. The 2014 Maidan color revolution. But Mongolia, that's going to be very different. You got Russia on top, you got China underneath, you have Kazakhstan to the west. No way, man. No freaking way is the United States going to be able to get a color revolution, a regime change going in Mongolia. Then again, I do not know much about what is happening in Mongolia. So who knows? There's always the possibility that the U.S. might successfully pull something off, but the geography alone, in my opinion, makes it extremely difficult to get some sort of a regime change and to have a regime change hold in Mongolia, given its position. But Ukraine was a much different story. So I think the power of Siberia is pretty solid. Mongolia as a transit state is going to be pretty solid, and China is going to benefit a lot from the power of Siberia too going forward. And Europe is going to suffer a lot from the fact that China is going to be benefiting a lot from the power of Siberia too going forward, specifically Germany. Germany, the big loser out of all of this. So we're going to have the World War II events taking place in China. Putin, of course, is there, and Kim arrived in China via armored train. he's gonna be there. I can't wait for the photo of Putin, Xi, and Kim. I can't wait for that photo to be published. Boy, our collective West heads, they're gonna explode. Boy, our heads in the collective West gonna explode. What am I trying to say, man? Oh my God, you see that pigeon distracted me. Pigeon drinking water. Damn it, pigeon drinking water. Why are you distracting me? Now let me put up a map of Power of Siberia too, so you guys can take a look at the route. Yeah, it goes right through Mongolia. So Trump is plenty mad at India. He lashed out at India yesterday, completely expected given all of the social media posts from Modi. you knew that was going to set Trump off, and he lashed out against India on Truth Social. What few people understand is that we do very little business with India, but they do a tremendous amount of business with us. In other words, they sell us massive amounts of goods. Their biggest client, but we sell them very little. Until now, a totally one-sided relationship, and it has been for many decades. The reason is that India has charged us until now such high tariffs, the most of any country, that our businesses are unable to sell into India. It has been a totally one-sided disaster. Also, India buys most of its oil and military products from Russia, very little from the US. They have now offered to cut their tariffs to nothing, but it's getting late. They should have done so years ago. Just some simple facts for people to ponder. Okay, not so bad of a post, to be quite honest. He didn't lash out too much against India, but the news coming out of the SCO meeting, obviously it got to him. So he felt he had to explain the India situation via Truth Social. Navarro, he lashed out. Not Navarro, he lashed out. Not so much against India, but he lashed out again. This is the third time in about 3 days that Navarro lashed out against the whole India cooperating with China and Russia thing. So he's walking back his anger towards India, and he's now coming out with the line that he loves the Indian people and he really respects Modi. Whoa, look at that. I always forget the name of that bird, but I know it's very rare to get so close to that bird. Amazing, huh? Yeah, he's just hanging around. Now he's gone. All right. He was just hanging around. So Navarro, yeah, he's now saying how much he loves the people of India, and he really respects Modi, but he just can't figure out why Modi would hang out with two authoritarian dictators like Putin and Xi. That's what he said. He outdid Biden. Biden would confine it to one authoritarian dictator per statement. Every statement from Biden or Blinken or whoever was always focused on one authoritarian dictator. Well, Peter Navarro, he knocked down two authoritarian dictators in one statement. Oh man, Peter Navarro. Can't get him to stay quiet, huh? President Trump. Peter Navarro bringing BRICS and the global South closer together. Give that man a Nobel Peace Prize, that Peter Navarro.
The road to peace in many ways runs at least partly through New Delhi. It's time for Modi to step up. I have great respect for Modi. I love the Indian people. It was a shame to see Modi getting in bed as the leader of the biggest democracy in the world with the two biggest authoritarian dictators in the world, in Putin and Xi Jinping. That doesn't make any sense. I'm not sure what he's thinking, particularly since India has been in a Cold War and sometimes a hot war with China for decades. So we hope that the Indian leader comes around to seeing that he needs to be with us in Europe and Ukraine and not with Russia on this, and he needs to stop buying the oil.
Oh man, so they must have gotten really triggered with the news that came out with regards to Modi riding with Putin in his car, and the news is that the actual trip to the event was like a 5-minute trip or a 10-minute trip, but Modi and Putin actually stayed in the automobile for 50 minutes talking business. That must have really set them off. The collective West must have set off the collective West. And Navarro, of course, because Navarro's obsessed with Modi and India. Oh boy, Scott Bessent. He was speaking to Fox News, and he is now saying that everything is on the table when it comes to sanctions against Russia. He said that there was some understanding that after Alaska, Russia was just going to stop the conflict, right? Everything went well in Alaska, a good meeting, and according to Bessent, Russia continued the war, right? And he didn't like that, and President Trump didn't like that. His administration didn't like that. So now they're looking to punish Russia once again with sanctions, and everything is on the table, including bone-crushing, 500% bone-crushing sanctions. The Lindsey Graham bone-crushing sanctions, which are just really sanctions against China and India. So that's Bessent. The Trump White House. Not doing well in foreign policy, that's for sure. Trump is not getting any closer to his Nobel Peace Prize. Even though Putin is very complimentary of Trump. Putin is very, very complimentary of Trump. He had a meeting with FICO in China. FICO is the only European leader who will be attending the events in China. What a disgrace for Europe. An absolute disgrace for Europe. But anyway, Fico did the right thing, and he's representing. And he met with Putin, They had a very good meeting. I believe it just ended about like 5-10 minutes ago. And Putin, he complimented Trump. He said that the meeting in Alaska was a very positive sign and that the Trump administration did what the Biden administration would not do, and that is they talked to Russia and they listened to Russia and they had a meeting, they had dialogue, communication. So Putin is super complimentary of Trump. And Putin also told FICO that Russia has no problem with Ukraine entering the European Union. That is what Putin told FICO. FICO actually said to Putin, probably the media will laugh, but sometimes I get the impression that we in the EU are like frogs at the bottom of a well. We don't see what's above us, but the world is completely different. I am disappointed that the EU is unable to respond to movements in the world. Therefore, I want to speak frankly. We are interested in standardizing relations between Slovakia and Russia. Good statements from the leader of Slovakia. So yeah, Putin said that Russia is okay with Ukraine entering the EU. Actually, what Putin was saying, he didn't come out and say it as a statement, as if Russia had changed their position or something like that when it comes to Ukraine and the European Union. What Putin was saying was look, we've never had any objection. He was telling FICO, we've never had any objection to Ukraine joining the European Union. He said that Russia's not part of the EU, Russia's not part of NATO. So if Europe wants Ukraine in the EU, he said we've never had any objection to that. But our red line has always been with Ukraine joining NATO, because what Putin said is something that he has said often. It's an argument that Lavrov has made often, which is that one country's security cannot be ensured at the expense of someone else. So this is an argument that Putin and Lavrov and the foreign ministry have made over and over again when it comes to Ukraine joining NATO. But Putin said, look, when it comes to the European Union, our position has not changed on that. And so, you know, if you go back to Istanbul 2022, the Russians were fine with Ukraine entering the European Union. And so it looks like Putin is saying we'll still stick with that. We'll still say that Ukraine, in whatever shape or form it's in, can still join the European Union if the EU member states decide that they want Ukraine in the EU. But as far as NATO is concerned, that's a security risk. That's an existential security risk for Russia. So there's three ways that you can look at this statement from Putin, or three ways you can look at Ukraine possibly entering the European Union with regards to the EU and to Russia. The first way you can look at it is that Putin understands that Ukraine in the European Union, if it were to get into the EU, would speed up the collapse of the EU, because Ukraine is such a mess. It's big, it's bankrupt, it's a complete mess, very corrupt. It would speed up the collapse of the EU. So that's the first way you can look at this statement from Putin. Maybe he realizes this and says, go ahead, let Ukraine into the European Union, and the EU will be done with a lot quicker than anyone expected. The other way that you can look at it is that Ukraine entering the European Union is pretty much the same thing as Ukraine entering NATO, right? The EU and NATO are not that different anymore. The EU is the political side of the coin, and NATO is the military side of the coin. But at the end of the day, it's still one coin. And so, you know, you can look at this as perhaps a bad strategic move from Putin. To allow Ukraine into the EU would be pretty much letting Ukraine get one foot in the door to NATO, especially if you listen to the comments from EU officials and from EU member states. where they talk about the European Union and NATO and how close they are. And they talk about an EU army and the EU army's connection to NATO. So, this could be seen as a bad strategic decision from Putin. And of course, the other way you can look at this is Putin understanding that Ukraine will never get into the EU, kind of like Turkey. Turkey's been trying to get into the EU for 30 plus years. And Ukraine may be in the same position as Turkey. Putin understanding that there'll be a lot of countries in the European Union, when push comes to shove, they will say, nope, we're not ready to take Ukraine into the EU, because we understand that it is going to be bad not only for the European Union, but also for our own economies. I can think of Hungary, Slovakia, Poland. I don't know how hot Poland is for Ukraine entering the EU. It would cause a lot of problems and a lot of difficulties. I'm thinking about Polish farmers, for example. So maybe Putin realizes this. Maybe he understands that the EU is really talking up Ukraine entering the European Union now, but what if they really had that option of allowing Ukraine into the EU? Would they really want Ukraine into the EU? Or is this just talk? So maybe Putin's calling their bluff. Anyway, that's the statement from Putin as he was meeting with Fico. And Macron, since we're talking about meetings, he is preparing his coalition of the willing, as long as the United States enters Ukraine, a meeting to take place on September 4th. The coalition of the willing, as long as the United States enters Ukraine meeting. That is what we're talking about. And Macron, he said that he spoke with NATO CEO Mark Rutte, and they are preparing for the big meeting to take place in Paris, where they will discuss security guarantees for Ukraine. Macron posted on X, I just spoke with the NATO Secretary General to prepare the meeting of the Coalition of the Willing, which will take place this Thursday in Paris. Together with our partners and in coordination with NATO, we will work to define robust security guarantees for Ukraine. These are a necessary prerequisite to move credibly towards peace. We will also review Russia's stance as it persists in its war of aggression and continues to reject peace, unity and determination in our support for Ukraine, and an unwavering will for peace. So Macron is playing Napoleon as his country crumbles, right? They're going to have a no confidence vote on September 8th, and everyone expects the government to lose that no confidence vote. The government will then collapse. The Bayrou prime ministership will be over, and France is in a whole big mess on the domestic front. But Macron, in order to distract away from all of the problems he has with France and the terrible job that he's done as president of France, and the fact that he is so freaking unpopular as president of France, he decides that, you know what, instead of trying to be a man and face up to the problems in my country, ants marching. Instead of trying to face up to the problems in my country, I'm going to play Napoleon, and I'm going to meet with NATO CEO Rutte, and we're going to talk about security guarantees and taking on Russia and all of these things. Macron, flip-flopper Macron. By the way, Christine Lagarde, the ECB chief, we have an audience all of a sudden. They decided to come listen to some news, huh? Welcome, pigeons. ECB chief Lagarde said that France is not going to be coming to the IMF for a bailout. It's not going to happen. She said that the debt levels of France right now at the moment do not warrant any IMF help. So she said that France can can solve their debt issues, but they have to get their house in order. So she said that France is not going to be going to the IMF yet. She did use the word yet. They're not going to go to the IMF just yet. France isn't heading to the IMF, ECB's Lagarde says. But the central bank head said Paris absolutely has to get its public finances in order. Austria has said that they are not going to be looking to get into NATO. The foreign minister of Austria, about a month ago, she was talking about how Austria is going to make a bid to enter NATO, ditch neutrality and go into NATO. We now have the Chancellor of Austria, Christian Stoiker, who said Austria will not reconsider its neutrality policy. Joining NATO is not on the agenda. You see, is that so hard? Is it so hard for a country to say, we're not going to join NATO, we're going to remain neutral? Not hard. Not hard at all. Why could Zelensky not have said that in 2020, 2021? Those exact words. We're going to remain neutral and we have no plans whatsoever to join NATO. That's all he had to say. That's it. Not so difficult. Very simple. So Pistorius, the defense minister of Germany, he lashed out at Ursula von der Pirate, because he says that Ursula is talking about deploying military personnel in Ukraine and moving troops around in Europe. And according to the Financial Times, Ursula is putting together a very detailed plan, a very detailed military plan of how to take on Russia if there is some sort of a ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine. And Pistorius was very angry at Ursula's statements. He basically said that Ursula has no jurisdiction at all to talk about military plans and military movements and stuff like that. That's what Pistorius said. So since we're on the topic of Germany, this is an interesting story. Very, very interesting story. So over the past 2 weeks, there were 4 deaths in the AfD. And just yesterday, we got the news that there were another 2 deaths of AfD political party members. These are party members, politicians, who were going to be standing for local elections in the German state of North Rhine-Westphalia. So one region, one party, one region, local elections coming up very soon. I believe in the next, I want to say September 12th. But anyway, the next week or two, you're going to have local elections. And in the past 2 weeks, give or take 2 weeks, you've had six deaths from one party, one region, politicians running for elections in this region dying. What the F? What is going on here, man? Is this coincidence? Maybe this is coincidence. But what are the chances of that happening? What are the chances? Even Welt, the mainstream media outlet Welt, had to report on this. That's how this has gone from conspiracy to now you have German mainstream media actually reporting this. And German mainstream media is very hostile to AfD, but they can't ignore this. No one can ignore this anymore. I read this story last night, and then I woke up. I woke up this morning, and it went from 4 deaths to 6 deaths. Last night I was reading it was 4 deaths, and then it became 6. And that's when I posted this on X. So I posted this story on X, and I was like, "What's going on here? I don't know what's happening. Maybe this is coincidence." Someone asked Grok about the deaths of the AfD candidates. And Grok said, based on recent reports from sources like Die Welt, the 6 deceased AfD candidates in NRW are, I'm not going to say their names, but the deaths of one candidate was kidney failure. Another was suicide, another was natural causes, another was natural causes, another was heart attack, and another was natural causes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, yeah. Authorities report no foul play, that's what Grok says. Authorities are investigating this, by the way. They're investigating this like they investigated Nord Stream, the 3-year investigation into Nord Stream. Is that what we're going to get with this story? Very, very freaking weird development that's taking place in Germany in connection with AfD and these elections in North Rhine-Westphalia, NRW. That's what NRW is. One party, one region, a couple of weeks before elections, 6 deaths. Kidney failure, suicide, natural causes, heart attack, natural causes. Let's do an update on what's going on the front lines in Ukraine, because the situation is critical for the Ukraine military. It looks like Gerasimov, his update on what's happening on the front line, which kind of shocked everyone. It shocked all of the military analysts, because Gerasimov painted a picture of a much more dire, much more desperate situation for the Ukraine military than many of the analysts and mappers had thought. It looks like Gerasimov was right. Go figure. He has all the intel. He's the top commander, so he knows exactly what's happening on the front lines. Anyway, the situation in Pokrovsk is as Gerasimov described it. We're now starting to get some news about what's going on in Pokrovsk. Let me read you the update from Officer The Opinion. Russian breakthrough toward Pokrovsk railway station. By The Opinion, Russian forces continue breaking Ukrainian defenses in Krasnomayarsk, which is Pokrovsk, advancing directly towards the railway station, the last vital artery for Ukrainian troops in this sector. Battles intensify in the Lazurny microdistrict, with assaults pressing towards Gnatovka. Ukrainian supply routes have collapsed. The northern and eastern roads are unusable, leaving only a single northwestern corridor for retreat or resupply. Simultaneously, Russian drone units from the 5th Army systematically destroy heavy enemy UAVs, maintaining aerial dominance on the South Donetsk axis. Regular operations suppress Ukrainian attempts to regain the sky, ensuring freedom of action for Russian assault groups on the ground. Basically, what you're looking at is a Pokrovsk which is blocked. It looks like it is blocked as Gerasimov described it. Russians have control of the skies. They are operating their drones as they please, as they wish. And sooner or later, it looks like Ukraine is going to either have to find a way to make a very messy retreat, or they're finished. Whatever Ukraine is in Pokrovsk is going to be finished. As this analysis points out, the railway, that's going to be the big fight for control of the last vital artery, the railway station. Yeah, it makes for a good defensive position, but the Russians are going to take it sooner or later, and that's going to be the end of the Ukraine military in Pokrovsk. So, what else should we talk about? How about an update? A quick update on the Parubi assassination, the assassination of the leader of the Maidan revolution, one of the top guys in Bandera land, Mr. Parubi, who was assassinated the other day. Ukraine caught the guy, allegedly caught the guy who shot Parubi, and his statement, we have his statement now. It's that he didn't get any, from my understanding, he didn't get any orders from Russia. He took out Parubi basically because he was angry at the fact that his son got recruited into the military, was abducted and sent to the front lines, and was killed. And so what he's hoping for in his statement he said what he's hoping for is some sort of an exchange, so he can go to Russia and be reunited with his son's body. I think that's what he said in his statement. Let me see here. According to him, what he did was his personal revenge against the Kiev authorities. He added that he would like to be exchanged so he could go search for the body of his deceased son. He also said that if it had been Parubi living next to him in Vinica, but Poroshenko, he would have gladly taken him out as well. Yeah, he said it wasn't that he had a beef with Parubi per se. He had a beef with the Ukrainian, the Banderites, the top Ukrainian officials that got Ukraine into this conflict, right? The Poroshenkos, the Parubis, the Maidan people. That's who he's angry with. So he basically said if it was Poroshenko, it would have been Poroshenko, but it was Parubi that was living nearby, so that's who he took out. Anyway, that's the update there on that story. But the important part is that he says that there was no contacts with Russian special services. He said no contacts, no blackmailing, none of that stuff. This was on his own, in the hopes that he'll be exchanged and be reunited with the body of his deceased son. Let's do a clown world and we'll wrap up this video. And boy, is this a great clown world. One of the greatest of all time, today's clown world. So yesterday I talked about Ursula's flight into Bulgaria and how the Financial Times had said that there was some jamming going on, some GPS jamming that happened, and so the pilots, they had to land the plane with paper maps, right? That is what the Financial Times said. Breaking news, a suspected Russian interference attack targeting the president of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, disabled GPS navigation services at a Bulgarian airport and forced the Commission president's plane to land using paper maps. Oh no, not paper maps. Yeah, so that's what the Financial Times reported, and their sources were, I believe their sources were Bulgarian airport officials as well as EU officials. And so those were their sources, and she was going to be landing in Plovdiv in Bulgaria, and it was Russian jamming that forced the pilots to have to land the plane with paper maps. Oh my God. And everyone was outraged in the collective West. They were all outraged. All the cool kids in the collective West were outraged. How dare Putin try to bring down the plane of our leader, of our president? Article 5, Article 5, Article 5, or whatever. Anyway, everyone's outraged, right? And the Kremlin denied this. They came out very quickly with a statement denying this. They had nothing to do with any kind of jamming or anything like that. The BBC, their article title was EU Chief von der Leyen's plane hit by suspected Russian GPS jamming. And the Financial Times, they also reported that during an approach to a Bulgarian airport, the aircraft lost navigational aids. And after circling for about an hour, the pilot decided to land the plane using analog maps, the FT reported. Remember that, for an hour. For an hour, Ursula's plane was circling above Bulgaria, above Plovdiv, and the pilots eventually had to use maps to land the plane. For 1 hour, 1 hour, she was circling around because of Russian GPS jamming. We're jamming. We're jamming. Bob Marley, everybody. We're jamming. Russia's jamming. Anyway, Flight Radar 24. Oh boy, let's get to the clown world and all of this. Flight Radar 24. They posted on X yesterday. We are seeing media reports of GPS interference affecting the plane carrying Ursula von der Leyen to Plovdiv, Bulgaria. Some reports claim that the aircraft was in a holding pattern for 1 hour. This is what we can deduce from our data. The flight was scheduled to take 1 hour and 48 minutes. It took 1 hour and 57 minutes. The aircraft's transponder reported good GPS signal quality from takeoff to landing. In other words, someone's been lying. Someone's lying. Is it the EU that's lying? Is it Ursula that's lying? Is it Bulgaria air traffic control that's lying? Someone is lying. Is it everybody? Everybody that's lying. Van der Leyen, someone is lying, man. Yeah. Yep. The EU, the script writers, let's call them the script writers, they forgot about Flight Radar 24 and Flight Tracker and all of these services that are actually tracking and tracing all the flights all around the world. They forgot about these services, right? As they were formulating this script about Ursula being in the sky for 1 hour in a holding pattern for 1 hour, no GPS, and having to use paper maps, which from what I understand from many pilots who have contacted me, they said that, paper maps, yeah, we can fly with paper maps. That's how we learn to fly, actually. We can use paper maps. But anyway, they had to land with paper maps, all because of Putin. Yeah, now we know that the flight was 9 minutes delayed, 9 minutes delayed in arriving in Bulgaria. And the GPS, all good. All good. How about that, man? Oh boy, one of the best clown worlds ever. And these are the people that are running the European Union, everybody. People that have to make up stories about some Russian jamming of their airplane, of their GPS as they're going to land in Bulgaria, not thinking about the flight tracking and flight radars and all of that stuff, not thinking that maybe, just maybe, we're going to be found out. No, let's just go with this story. It sounds good. It makes Ursula look tough and brave. It smears Russia. Yeah, let's just go with it. Oh my God, in the Financial Times, what were you thinking? What were you thinking, FT? Maybe you should have contacted one of these flight radar accounts and actually just, contacted them and said, hey, before we run with this story about Ursula, can you tell us about this flight? Did this really happen? Was it really 1 hour delayed? Was the GPS really jammed? I've also heard from people who said that Russia would not even be able to jam this far out into Bulgaria. That it's too far out for Russia to jam the GPS. I've heard that as well. But anyway, the people that are running the EU are children. They're children, and they're liars. Which is why no one should believe anything that they are saying about Project Ukraine either. Not about the coalition of the willing, not about boots on the ground, not about the talks about the Russian economy or anything like that. Because if they can lie about something like this, then they're going to lie about all of the other stuff as well. So anyway, amazing, an amazing clown world. Can't believe it. I can't believe it. That's the video, theduran.locals.com. We're on X, we're on Telegram, we are on Rumble, and go to the Duran shop, pick up some merch like what I'm wearing in this video update. There is a link in the description box down below. Take care.